The Final Fantasy franchise and its main games are known for sharing many characteristics between them that could make anyone go, "Oh, this is a Final Fantasy game." These can be things like the job systems that characters can have for gameplay reasons, abilities like the name of the magic spells with Flare, Ultima, and the Ada or Aga ones, and probably the most recognizable feature that you'll see everywhere is the summons, a diverse set of entities that you can call upon to help you and most of the time cast a very powerful spell accordingly. What you may or may not know is how important and relevant these entities are going to be to the overarching plot of such game, as that's unique to every installment. You may think they only appear to make big cinematic moves, more powerful than the normal black magic to destroy your enemies, or you think that they are going to be the literally gods of the universe. So with Final Fantasy XVI coming up in less than 16 weeks, since its first reveal they already showed that the summons are going to be a key part of the story, and that was confirmed as we learn more and more about the game through the past 2 years, not to mention that they have Ifrit and Phoenix on its logo. So we are going to do a summary of every previous release to check how important these were to the world or story of them, covering the main games and going in order. The very first Final Fantasy game wasn't the one to have a command or class specialized in the ability of summoning creatures to deal a lot of damage. That was the third one. But you may know a certain iconic dragon in the series called Bahamut, whose first appearance did happen in this game, not as a game mechanic, but as a character in the story. Bahamut is known as the King Dragon, found underneath the Cardia Islands, or Dragon Caves, and is the leader of its race of non-aggressive dragons. His role in the story is to test the heroes with a challenge to prove their courage, making them go to the Citadel of Trials and return with a treasure as proof of their bravery, with the promise of giving them powers, as he will be the one to upgrade or promote your whole party into the next level of chosen classes. Your warrior is going to become a knight, your monk a master, your thief a ninja, and all your mages are going to become wizards instead. Therefore, this soon-to-be iconic summon had already an important role in the story of the original Final Fantasy. In the second game, there's something similar that happens. There's no class or command to use them as we are familiar with, but one of the most iconic summons of the series, the giant sea serpent Leviathan, appears in this game's story in a particular way. When you are traveling with your ship to reach the Tower of Mysidia, a whirlpool starts and you are attacked by this gigantic sea monster. Next thing you know, you're inside its intestines as a small dungeon where you meet and join the first Dragoon of the series, Ricard Highwind, so you can escape from it. The Summoner class would get its debut in the third release of the game, Final Fantasy III. Not from the start though, as you will get new classes after completing quests of the main story. So even before that, when you complete the Water Crystal, the job evokers will have the ability to call upon one of these summons, but when you reach and complete the Earth Crystal, you'll get the upgraded version, which is the more common Summoner class. The particularity is how you don't get the same powerful attack every time you call them, but have different abilities from the same summon cast by chance. This means that there's no story relation and relevancy to these entities, except for some interaction and fight with Bahamut and Leviathan. The lower ones you can get them in shops, and are purely a gameplay mechanic. But it's important to highlight that the list of summons available in this game will then become the main cast that will appear in most if not all games. These are Chocobo, Shiva, Ramu, Ifrit, Titan, Odin, Leviathan and Bahamut. Final Fantasy IV is the first game in which we get a background for both summons and summoners, while keeping the gameplay ability in the fights, as characters in this game have fixed jobs, because there's a bigger focus on their individualities and personal stories. Eventually these are referred as eidolons in this game, so I'll call them like that. The character that matters to us in this video is Rydia, also known as Rydia of Mist, as she is originally from the village of Mist, which you visit very early on the game, and thanks to the trap of the King of Baron, we set it on fire and destroy it, leaving only the little girl as survivor, who to defend herself from us, called Titan and provokes an earthquake. During that, we learned that said village was home of the race of summoners of this world, and that by killing the Mist Dragon, this place's guardian, we killed Rydia's mother, its master. Later in the game, Rydia gets lost because of an attack to the ship by once again the sea serpent Leviathan, but this time the Lord of all water is not only there to explore from the insides, but he is also the king of the Eidolons, living among them on a parallel plane in the underworld called the Feymarch, where the flow of time is faster. This is where Rydia ends up living and maturing at a quicker pace, until we get to see her again and she rejoins the party. During that time in between, she is being raised by the King Leviathan and the Queen Ashura, a new summon in the series, forming a fraternal relationship between them. While visiting this realm, we can interact with both of them and have a chance of fighting them as optional bosses, with the rewards being that Rydia can unlock and summon them in battle. In Final Fantasy V, we go back to the more basic use of summons. After all, this is a game all about jobs, like an improved or bigger version of what was introduced in Final Fantasy III. Therefore, the focus will be on the summoner class, and its unique ability to call them for battle. But as there are many ways of getting different summons to your collection, like fighting them during the journey, some of them are more meaningful because of their link to the characters. The most important one for this game specific would be Sildra. Before being able to even learn that you can have a summoner job, Sildra is introduced in the story being Faris, one of the main characters' pet sea dragon, and friends since she was a kid. You meet her in the game being the leader of her pirate gang, where Sildra helped the crew to sail even in a world where the wind stopped. Not too late after that, following the destruction of the water crystal, Sildra sacrificed herself to get Faris and the party safe. It's not until later in the game that by visiting the pirates' hideout, the friends reunite and conclude with unlocking our favorite pet monster of the sea as a summon to use. Another highlight that this game introduced was the first times of Carbuncle and Phoenix in a Final Fantasy game. Final Fantasy VI has a very rich story with summons, and that can be said from different approaches. One very simple one is how they are officially referred as espers in this game, having a specific name that will repeat over some future games, but for us it matters how important they are for the story in this world. As a race, the espers in Final Fantasy VI live in another world and have their own lore and backstory for their birth, and at some point before the start of the game, they were invaded by humans and the Imperial forces led by Emperor Gestahl and Kefka, who enslaved them and were able to extract their magical powers into weapons or magic armor, giving them the power they needed for the plan of conquering the world, a world where magic didn't exist anymore. Amidst this chaos, an elder of the Esper village got to form a sealed gate to prevent the invasion to keep going, but the Esper Matuin and the human Madeline, who fell in love the previous years, ended up in the human world, along with their newborn baby, Terra Brantford. This would cause that the Empire enslaved Maduin, took Terra as a hostage, and killed Madeline. The game starts and follows Terra's actions, initially brainwashed by the Empire forces. Her journey to learn about her background as a half-human, half-esper, her path to acceptance of her true nature and worth to feel and receive love, and her resolution of embracing her abilities to fight for a better world on behalf of the people that helped her to have the feeling of love. During the game, the first spell that helps you on the main story will be Ramuh, who's able to recover and calm down Terra after she loses control of her hidden power, and will act as an advisor, explaining the party members about the story and potential of the race, and before dying, entrusting himself to the heroes, transforming into a magicized stone. Every time an Esper dies, they will crystallize, and that's when you can use them in battle. The party journey continues to free the Espers from the Magitech research facility and try to ally with the rest of them that are in the Esper world. Opening the sealed gate causes them to go rampage and destroy the Empire, who claim to call for a truce. When the time is convenient, Kefka will take advantage of the current situation, kill every Esper to turn them into Magicite, and making use of the Warring Triad, the god's creator of magic and Espers, will be able to destroy and turn the world into the World of Ruin, making place for the second half of the game with the objective of taking down Kefka himself. Once the player is able to defeat Kefka and the Warring Triad, what happens to the magic and Espers, including Terra, who's half-human? Well, that's up to you to play and find out. One last reason summons are very predominant in Final Fantasy VI is that it introduced around 20 new ones, like Alexander, Fenrir and Ketshi. Wait, isn't that a character in... Now, if you're like me and your first experience of a Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy VII, and if you are even more like me and you only played Final Fantasy VII for maybe too many years before checking the rest, your idea of summons is going to be a very straightforward one. That is because in this game, the materia system is introduced, and there's a specific category of them called the summon materia, which allows you to use them if you equip it. And that's basically it. It's an even more simplified game mechanic than in 3 or 5. Not even the need of fight them before getting those. Probably the most you can get is some hint that some of these entities existed along the Ancients or when Genoa fell into the planet, as you can read in some lines of the Shiva Bestiary in Final Fantasy VII Remake. The charm of summons in this game comes in the very neat cinematic moves they have for its introduction, and that can especially be seen in the brand new ones, like the new versions of Bahamut, Neo Bahamut and Bahamut Zero, and Knights of the Round. So far it's very back and forth between the mostly gameplay focused group and the mostly story focused group. In Final Fantasy VIII, that's hard to say, and probably depends where you think the focus is. What's important is that the name given to them here is the Guardian Force, or better yet, GFs. They are entities able to bond with humans and their consciousness in a process called junction, allowing the user to use magic through them. For many instances in this game, this is a similar case to Final Fantasy V, where you collect these GFs either through fighting them, such is the case of the very first dungeon that has Ifrit as the boss, or by using the Final Fantasy VIII exclusive command, Throw. But there is a key role in the story that involves the Guardian Forces. That is because the ability to junction them and link one consciousness with it will bring consequences to the user, most specific to the main party members of the game, who will learn that they experience amnesia for excessive use of this, revealing that they all, minus Rinoa, have a shared past, being raised at Edea's orphanage. So the summons' existence in this universe shaped and influenced the character's journey, but they are not predominant in the main plot of the game. One Guardian Force that could be highlighted from here is Griever. Although not usable by the player, it is the interpretation of the ultimate Guardian Force by the main character Squall, brought to life by Ultimecia by perceiving this and using it to fight him instead. It's part of Squall Lionheart iconography. Final Fantasy IX is probably a reference fest, as shown in this lovely video, so you would expect to find some similarities from previous experiences. In this game, you also have a race of dedicated summoners, and the antagonists in this game are constantly on the run to get hold of the summons, in this game called Eidolons, and use them as weapons of war, starting by the Queen Bran of Alexandria and later Kuja, who's able to manipulate them so they are under his command. In the case of the summoners, the two remaining survivors of the tribe who lived in the village of Madain Sari are Aiko and Princess Garnet of Alexandria, aka Dagger, aka Sarah of Madain Sari, two party members and part of the main character crew. They both are the only ones who have the ability to use them in battle. You can see the role of Eidolons in this game story, not only to be used as weapons, but in a similar fashion to Final Fantasy VI before, your first contact with them is being able to talk to Ramuh, who guides Dagger and accepts her as his master. And later, in one of the most iconic cutscenes in Final Fantasy at the time, Dagger, with Aiko's help, is able to summon the Eidolon Alexander, to protect Alexandria from Bahamut's attack led by Kuja, and destroy him with the holy missiles in an amazing way. The story then shifts more towards Kuja and Garland, but another new summon to highlight from this game is Aiko's childhood friend Mog, who actually transforms into the Eidolon Madin to protect her from having her power extracted, and later becoming an item so Aiko can summon it anytime in battle. The summons in Final Fantasy X receive a new name, this time are called Aeons, and are fundamental for the game's main story, especially linked to one of the most popular characters of the franchise, Yuna, as she has the role of the summoner, followed by her guardians that are the rest of the party members, to complete a pilgrimage to save the world from the constant danger that is sin. For that, during her pilgrimage, she will visit and pray at many temples, earning the Aeon's powers, with the ultimate goal of reaching Sanakan, summoning the final Aeon to defeat Sin. Or at least that's how previous summoners have done it. For the Aeons themselves, they are manifestation of the dreams of the faith, given to the summoners after their prayers, and they swear allegiance to them with one objective: to stop dreaming after Sin is destroyed forever, instead of being in this eternal spiral that the world of Spira is on. That is why the crew's main objective is to put a stop to this spiral of being constantly threatened by Sin, which reappears every 10 years after its defeat, that also brings the death of the summoner. What would happen to every Aeon and their links if they do? Similar to Final Fantasy VI, there's only one way to find out. The summon to highlight from this game in particular has to be the first one that became Yuna's friend, Valefor, who she shares the strongest link with, becoming part of her symbology. In a similar way, the Aeon Anima is that to one of the antagonists, Seymour. I will jump ahead to the next series, just after mentioning that the sequel, Final Fantasy X-2, is based in the same world but a couple of years later, so the lore and background is still the same. Final Fantasy XI has the particularity that it's the first MMORPG of the franchise, while being part still of the main series. The way to approach the single-player story you are used to from RPGs is going to be different, but existing nonetheless. It's going to have its own lore and particular ways to use every element that the series is known for. The summons exist in this universe too. They are called avatars, and are entities of the world that can be summoned by the player if they have the summoner class. Their more important feature in the story of the game is that they are divided into two different types of classes. The terrestrial avatars are beasts tasked to protect the Mother Crystal who serve the goddess Altana, creator of this world called Vanadiel. The other class are the celestial avatars. These ones, instead, are known as the sleeping gods, resting in proto-crystals hidden around various parts of the world, which can be part of the summoner if they defeat the entity in battle and form a pact with it. Most of them are your most recognizable summons of the franchise, but the one standing out from this group is the introduction of the avatar Garuda, to represent the element of wind, which is going to reappear in a predominant way in Final Fantasy XVI. The world of Final Fantasy XII is set in Ivalice, same as in Final Fantasy Tactics, so the summons of this world are going to be very close and connected to this, but being called espers. While the history of these entities in particular is not the focus of the game, some of them you encounter and clash against to advance in the main plot. Such are the cases of Belias the Gigas or Hashmal Bringer of Order, both espers based on already existing monsters in Tactics, or against Mateus the Corrupt, whose name is inspired by Final Fantasy II final boss, as shown in this other lovely video. But besides this, their existence in this world is because they are creations of the Okuria, the most powerful beings in this universe, with one of them often linked as the biggest ally of the game's main antagonist, Vayne and Dr. Sid. And many optional espers act as one of the biggest challenges the games can provide, having their own individual background and information you can check in their profiles at the bestiary. Defeating any esper allows you to pick a party member to bond with it, granting them the ability to summon it in battle. When your main characters become a Lucy in Final Fantasy XIII, they are granted the mission to fulfill a certain focus, before they turn into monsters called Sith. Your journey starts, and with that, everyone is going to go down a path with lots of ups and downs mentally that they'll need to overcome. This is where the role of the summons of these games, or Eidolons, are going to be present. After the first encounters with them, where you have to defeat them in different challenges to unlock their power and receive the ability to summon them via the power of the crystal called the Eidoliths, you learn that the reason of their existence is always when a Lucy and their will to finish their focus starts to waver. It is said that they are saviors, who actually come to rescue a hopeless Lucy. By testing them in a fight, they will offer a brand of salvation to them. A messenger to deliver hope when all was lost. That's how, through the course of the main story, each of the 6 playable characters will have an encounter with a specific Eidolon assigned to them. They will have to win in a fight to eventually get the ability to summon them in normal battles, as long as they are the party leaders. The Eidolons themselves, they are creations of the goddess Etro, and most of them reside in Valhalla, the middle world between the world of the living and the world of the dead, or the unseen world. This background is something you get to see more in Final Fantasy XIII too, and eventually Lightning Returns. I can speak for hours about the lore and myth of the Fabula Nova Crystallis, but we can move on. This game was the last one to introduce new summons, and these two were Hecatomcheir, who shares the same name as a Final Fantasy III enemy and has probably way too many more arms that I am comfortable with, and Brynhild, who I hope I don't have to pronounce again. Final Fantasy XIV is the second MMORPG in the series, therefore one of the playable classes for you to choose at some point is the Summoner Jove, which will allow them to use what is known as ENG, fragments of the actual summons to use in battle during gameplay, smaller enough to be able to control them at will, such as Ifrit or Titan. But the creatures themselves have their own role in the world. They are called the Primals, also known as icons, and are powerful manifestations whose creation originated from the energy of this world itself, called Ether. They are considered a threat to the world to some, such as to the Gallian Empire, as they were associated with sudden new attacks, and they require a great amount of ether to maintain and grow their forms. It's one of the reasons the Gallian campaign to destroy the Primals became a thing. As Final Fantasy XIV have been a very active game for the past 10 years, as for now at patch 6.1 it has included around 51 known primals, and these go from the most iconic summons of the series to any other that has appeared in only one game, or iconic enemies that have taken the role of such in this universe, as this game is a perfect recollection of the franchise. In Final Fantasy XV, we have a fixed number of summons called the Astrals, also known as the Six. You may imagine how many they are. These are colossal beings in the world of Eos, worshipped as gods, and it's said that they are in a slumber waiting to be awakened. The other concept that exists in this world is the Oracle, who can communicate with them to share mankind's message to them. During the game, your role as Noctis is to forge a pact with them by passing their trials, through battles or similar means, and be your aid in your missions, being able to summon them in important fights during the main journey to collect the king's weapons and accept his role as such. There's no new summon introduced in this game, as the Six is part of the main core since the first game of the franchise, but the ones that stand out are Ifrit, who serves as a boss fight, not to get his power or as a test, but rather he acts as the guardian of Ardyn's final dungeon, and Bahamut, who acts as the leader and transmits Noctis the prophecy he must fulfill at the end of the game. There are other entities known as the Messengers that are used to communicate only, such is the case of the Carbuncle of this game. The next mainline Final Fantasy game is finally coming up soon, and we could tell from the very start that it was going to include the summons, referred to as icons, in a very predominant way for the plot of this. Even the game's creative director has stated that from the very start of the project they had decided that Final Fantasy XVI would focus on the icons, which inspired the making of this video recap. Of course, the game has not been out yet, so I can't fully tell their full role, but from what we know so far, the most important characters are mostly going to be known as dominants of different icons, which means they can manifest the summon power through them, and their importance for the story is going to be about how different nations handle the icon and its dominant power, which can be a source of power for them, as mere pawns, or even some objectives to hunt and try to alienate from the rest. Another thing to look forward to is that the battles themselves are going to be different, as they are treated more as an action kaiju fight instead of cinematic moves alone. So with all this exciting news about the first new Final Fantasy mainline game in years, it's the perfect time to get into this lovely franchise, as it provides a wide range of ideas and gameplay changes to keep it fresh and make every experience unique, making it that there's probably a specific favorite game that resonates more or less with each person. Thank you very much for watching, play some Final Fantasy, and I'll see you later. Love you.